Well, it's so nice to be here this morning, and I'm so glad that you all are here. I'm excited to share with you some of the research that I find so fun. It's so inspiring. I hope that you get a little bit inspired or intrigued by it as well. I have to think before I get going that, obviously work is not done alone. This research involves many, many people. So a huge thanks to members of my research team and also to the streaming science team at the University of Florida that helped make some of the videos that you're going to see. Okay. Get everything set just right. There we go. Okay, so first, what I'm going to do is introduce the people, the location that are actually the people involved in the research. Then I'll talk about the big picture of the scientific questions that we are addressing. After that, I'll talk about leaf-footed cactus bugs and the experiment essentially we're doing, how we started doing this work, what question is driving us, and how we are actually doing it. And then finally, I'm going to end with some videos and just kind of show you the people involved behind the work and where some of this, like the actual natural environment involved as well. So, okay, so I was based at the University of Florida until just last year. And I was at Gainesville. This is North Central Florida. So you're going to hear a little, this is going to come up in the talk a little bit about what the work that was going on there and is still going on. And since last year, I've been here at the University of Cambridge. So my current research group is mostly based still at the University of Florida. I'm very happy that one member of that group is here in the audience. So a lot of work still going on there with the National Science Foundation group. I'm building my group here actually October. Then I will also have I'll have two groups, one there and one here. So like probably many of you, I grew up just loving the outdoors and loving nature. I was very inspired by my group in Montana. I was going canoeing with my dad and hiking and just playing with all sorts of insects. And I was amazed by the biodiversity in the natural world. I just loved just seeing all the life in all of its varied forms. And one question that has always intrigued me is, why do animals come in so many shapes and sizes? Why is there not just, a few good forms out there? Why is it so, so diverse? And so for this, I wanted to point out this giraffe family. And you're probably aware of giraffe and maybe okapi right there. Those are extant. They're living today. But there's also some extinct species here, the four on the right. And you might not even know necessarily that they were giraffe because they look a little bit different, but they're very, very closely related to modern day giraffe. And while you can see their bodies come in so many shapes and sizes, you can also notice there's some things coming out of their heads that are very diverse in their shapes and sizes. And in the modern day giraffe, we have these little ossicones that males fight with. In these other species, we presumably fought and had these other bony-like structures coming out, right? And why are they so variable, right? You think about it, you've got anything that's almost like moose antlers, maybe deer antlers, and then all these other shapes. So when I look at something like this, or if I look at the horns of African antelope, I think to myself, why are they so varied? Isn't there one good shape that all animals have and use to get their way, right? When they're involved in fights, when they're trying to defend themselves, when they're trying to get food, why isn't there just one or just a few forms of weapons? Okay, so this is one area of my research is on animal weapons. And so this is where I'm going to focus today. With you can see some other examples of weapons out there. These are the amazing tusks of the prehistoric elephants, the incredible claws of the fiddler crabs. So you're starting to see that, they come in like kind of astounding variety of forms. You might be familiar with the antlers of deer, also the walrus tusks. And this is an elk in Yellowstone National Park. And I was on top of my vehicle filming it. So one thing you can notice is that these are really big, heavy antlers. He's invested a lot of growth in them. He's probably given up some of the calcium from his very bones to grow these. They grow them every year and then shed them. And not only is he carrying these heavy, heavy antlers around, then in fighting with other males to be able to get close to females, he is also parading them around. He's showing them off. He's making sounds to call attention to himself. So when we think about animal weapons, I think, we use the word weapons, right? And that brings up ideas of human weapons, but I think it's worth a little bit of a rethink. These do not need to be deadly weapons like guns and knives. And in fact, animals rarely kill each other when they're fighting. You can think of them like human fists. They can be used in defense to get food. Some weapons are used in hunting, for example, and to get mates. The one question, I really love animal behavior. I have since I was very, very young. And when I see them using, like when I see elk sparring in Yellowstone, I think what makes one animal a better fighter than others? And of course, it might have something to do with the weapon itself, but there's a number of other factors. And I think sometimes when I'm wondering these sort of questions, I think about what we know from humans. And of course, humans fight as well. You can see that in boxing matches, mixed martial arts, for example. And there's a lot of talk about, who's going to win these battles, right? And why. So they talk about, for example, skill, strength, size. And another important one is the ability to resist injury, right? Because if somebody comes at you, I mean, do your bones immediately break? Are you on the ground, or are you popping back up again, ready to fight? And so along those lines, we noticed a lot of animals have broken weapons. And this is actually very common. If you go out in pretty much any natural population where animals have some obvious weapon you can see, you notice that some of them are broken. So within a single population, some individuals have weapons that break and some do not. So even within, population, you can see these differences. And here's another elk that I also photographed in Yellowstone. You can tell I like Yellowstone National Park. And you can see they're fully snapped off there. And that male is pretty much out of luck for that mating season. Like, he's not going to be able to get close to females. He's not going to be able to reproduce. Of course, he'll grow them again, another pair of antlers next year, and hopefully he'll have better luck in that case. So animals need weapons for fighting over mates, hunting, and for defense, and they do not do very well without them. So why would weapons break? They're really pretty important. You'd think if anything, they would grow weapons that could handle some pressure. And we were wondering what's getting in the way, what's stopping them from growing this, really robust weapon. So one factor we realized, again, kind of thinking about humans, is nutrition. And nutrition matters to other animals, not just humans. So you might do better, for example, if you eat a bowl of broccoli than some crisps. But what's healthy for them is going to be different for every animal species. And sometimes a lot of animals are limited in nature. A lot of animals can't get the good diet that they need. So we had a hypothesis that animals that do not eat a healthy diet will have a weak weapon that breaks easily. And this is our overarching hypothesis across all species, but we study this in an insect. And you can tell I'm very intrigued by elk and the big mammals, but I've also always loved insects. And so that's one reason to study them, but there's a lot of other practical reasons as well. One is they're easy to work with. You can see they're smaller. You can keep them in captivity easier than you could, for example, in a giraffe or an elk. They have short generation times, which means that you can actually see them evolve. It's easy to change their diet and give them different natural diets and see how they respond. And they can teach us about many other animals. As Ed mentioned, I work on the leaf-footed bugs. This is this incredible group of insects that I have spent over 20 years now, quite a bit more than that even, working on them. And I just love all their shapes and sizes, colors. They're a family of insects with over 3,000 species across the world, and they all feed on plants. So one area of research, this is just a bit of a tangent, but related, is that one thing we're asking is how have true bugs evolved to have such diversity in their hind legs? The hind legs are their fighting structures. They're their weapons that they use in their battle. So why do they have such diversity? You can see these incredible legs here. These are just the legs on several species. You can see how variable they really are, both in their femur and in their tibia, and the different shapes there. They also have other weapons they use, like a ventral horn even, which is pretty incredible. So in that line of research, we're asking how weapons have changed over evolutionary time using phylogenomics. And but I'm going to pull us back to the question for today. I'm always happy to talk about this as well. But today we're going to talk about why some animals In particular, in these insects, in some populations, some of them have weapons that break, and some of them can handle weeks and weeks and weeks of fighting, and they're perfectly fine. Our major study species within the leaf-footed bugs is called Narnia femerata. It's kind of fun that it has the name Narnia, and femerata refers to the femurs on its hind legs and how they're enlarged. All right, I get to show you a video of bug fighting, which is watching them fight is always so fascinating to me. Before I get going with this, I'll just say that Narnia femerata feed, eat, I did say that, eat, mate, they lay eggs, the offspring grow up all on cactus plants. And so I actually brought a cactus along. These are the ones we work on in Florida. They're small prickly pear cacti. And you can see these bugs on one. These are two males. So it's in this particular species, it's just the males that fight. Other leaf-footed bugs, there's sometimes be the females that fight as well. But in this one, it's just the males. And these two males are fighting over a territory. So what they do is they defend these territories. They keep other males away so that when females come in, that they can have an opportunity then to try to persuade the female to mate. Okay, so these are two males on this plant. Now, when they fight at such high speed that I had to do high-speed photography and then slow this down. So this is in slow motion. These two males are signaling to each other. They're showing each other their hind legs, like, don't mess with me, right? And that often means that they can avoid these fights. And then you can see there's a pause. And then you're gonna see neither one leaves. And then that one in the foreground wraps his hind legs around his opponent and he presses those spines from his femur into his opponent. And sometimes we think little insects, like, what, these little cute little fights, what can they do? But you can, if you kind of imagine them bigger, you can kind of see these are pretty fierce fights and they actually can injure each other. So we're going to get back to this hypothesis. The animals do not eat a healthy diet, will have a weak weapon that breaks easily. And their natural diet is cactus, like I said, prickly pear cactus in particular. And the healthiest food for these insects is the fruit of prickly pear. And here you can see this fruit is these big purple structures, right? And it has ripened, it's ready to be eaten. You can see the next sort of generation of cactus fruits developing right there, but these are the ones that are ripe and from essentially developed the year before. But many other animals eat cactus fruit. This is a wood rat that I caught pulling down one of those fruits and eating it. So it's a very popular resource. It's full of sugars and proteins. And sometimes the rodents, deer, birds, tortoise, they eat all the fruit, and this leaves only the cactus pads for the bugs. But when they are stuck with just a cactus pad, like this one here, it's not really a very good food for them. They don't do so well. So they have competitors that are essentially all these really big critters out there, leaving them sometimes with only cactus pads. So to understand how this change in nutrition affects them, we rear them on different natural diets, and we examine how these different diets affect their exoskeleton, the exoskeletal cuticle, the ability of their weapon to resist injury, and then actually how they perform in fights, like how do they fight the other bugs and who wins. So we see how diet affects their fighting. So after insects have died, we examine them under a microscope. We do penetrometry for injury resistance, which means we drive an insect, after they've died, we drive an insect pin into their body, see how much force it can withstand. We do spine crushing tests, again, to see those spines and how much force they can handle when fighting. And we do imaging with a synchrotron, which is an ability to get this digital imaging that we then look at. It's kind of like a CT scan. Okay, so here are some of our discoveries. I always like the visual. This is the same scale. This is the like a slice through the weapon of someone that had high quality nutrition, and over on the right one that had poor quality nutrition. And you can see the epicuticle along the top. Cuticle is what forms exoskeleton. And underneath is the procuticle. And procuticle has the hardened bits as well as a very leathery layer underneath. And so we see a huge difference. Those that have high quality nutrition have a very, very thick exoskeleton. And those that have low quality nutrition have a thin one. And it's almost, you can almost see through that cuticle. So huge difference visually. And you can see this in graphical form as well. The procuticle thickness on the y-axis, and you can see those that have the high quality nutrition, a much thicker procuticle. Now, if we look at a few other things about them, like their size and their sexual dimorphism. So insects, well, let me point out here, this is the area of the hind femur, which is this part of the leg, and females and males. So when they have the high quality fruit, insects grow large and they look really different. They grow really different sized legs if they're male and female. If they have early season fruit, which is, you might not even know these are fruit here. It took me a while to figure out when I started working on it, but it's these little green structures here. They will enlarge and become ripe cactus fruit in a bit, but it's not it's a mediocre diet. And you can see that they are smaller and they have reduced sexual dimorphism. And then cactus without fruit. Indeed, there's just the cactus pads, right? It's not so great. And so they end up tiny, and you can't even really tell the difference between females and males when you look at their legs. It's much like the difference in the bugs here, up in the upper left, and then the one that's much, much smaller over there. Okay, so we see these differences in how they look, how they're structured, but does it have functional relevance? So for that, we used a custom-built penetrometer, and this equipment tests the ability of an insect leg spine to puncture the cuticle. We simulate an insect leg spine with an insect pin, and it just measures the amount of force to be able to break into it. And we find a high-quality diet provided 3.7 times increased resistance to injury. So they are more injury resistant if they have a high-quality diet, which is what we were looking for. So yes, that is the case. We find the animals that do not eat a healthy diet end up with a weaker weapon. So we found that simple natural changes in diet that they're experiencing every year, this can happen to them. It's not unusual at all. It probably happens routinely. It affects the thickness of their skeleton, their size, their sexual dimorphism, and their injury resistance. We're also right now, my postdocs at the University of Florida are looking at how this affects then their actual fighting ability, how they fight, and we should have some findings on this very soon. So that's kind of the hardcore science part, and the rest of the talk, I'm going to show you some videos and give you some more background to what we do. This is, let me show you, when I was doing a behavior assay one day, I saw this happen, and it happened so quickly that luckily we can slow down this video. And the male on the left grabs the other male by the head and spins around and slaps him with his tibia. Yeah, they fight in so many different ways. Sometimes we do compare it to mixed martial arts. Like it's, they have that squeezing behavior I've shown you before, and then they have all sorts of other moves that they use. Signaling, we think, is very important because a lot of animals do it, including red deer, elk, where they show their weapon to each other before anything happens, and that gives the opportunity for no fight to happen. So a lot of times they don't end up actually contacting each other. It's just, hey, don't mess with me. And then, maybe one of them leaves and agrees it's not a good idea to mess with them. Okay, there's the end-to-end squeeze as well, which you've seen before. But what's kind of cool here is that you can see in the real world, they're not always on a nice smooth surface. Here they're trying to fight on a cactus flower, and they are having a hard time getting into the right position. You can see the spines on their hind legs. That helps with grip, also to potentially injure each other. But they're just trying to get in the right position here, and it takes a little while. This is in real time. And it takes, there's some adjustments happening, and then you'll see when they're finally like, okay, they're in the right position, and then almost there. Okay, there they are. Now they can back up and do a proper squeeze. And it happens so quickly. I didn't have high-speed photography in this case, but it happens so quickly we barely see what's going on. Okay, I want to give you a little bit more about behind the scenes, because science is more about, is not just about our questions and our results, but, there's a lot of people involved doing a lot of good work, all bringing different perspectives to the scene. And of course, the natural environment is a source of inspiration along the way as well. And it's really important that for me, when I need to get inspired about what to do with my research, I go and watch the animals in the wild, and I think, okay, what's important to them, and what do they sort of have to teach us, essentially? So I show a video that was shot in Florida, out in one of our natural areas where we collect leaf-footed bugs. I'm going to skip ahead to 1 minute just to save a little bit of time. So this is Alba, who's helping me out in the field. And that's a leaf-footed bug she's holding. So you get the sense of the size. I love that video because that's another leaf-footed bug that's found in Florida. It's so heavy and such big legs, and it's just trying to fly with those big legs. Doesn't look easy. So this is the natural habitat of this bug in Florida. You can see that this is a scrub ecosystem. It gets really hot there and really dry. And that's why we have cactus in Florida, is that the top layers of soil dry out really quickly, even though it rains a lot. So it's a harsh environment. Here you can see we do some work at Atonia Creek State Forest is one location, and some of the cacti growing. Again, they're pretty small plants. They're not like some of the big cacti you probably know about. So the cacti flower in April through June, and then the fruit mature after that. We go out, we fill buckets full of cactus to bring back to the lab. And here's just some of the people that have been involved in the work. And here's Christina Salerno, who works with me in Florida, speaking about what we do. Okay, so yeah, we bring them back to the greenhouse. So you get a greenhouse full of these cacti flowering, which is beautiful. We essentially just put a lid on these cups then, and the insects have all they need within just a deli cup, essentially. The greenhouse tour is pretty brief, but you can see a little bit around there. We also have a rearing room, and one is under construction here for my group. This is a specially designed space for raising insects indoors. So they live together in Terraria and in those cups like we showed you. And that's where we can raise them up so that when they're ready, we can take really good care of them, get them ready for our experiments. Okay, a couple more voices, again, showing like the research team involved. Both are undergraduate researchers. Okay, and I want to talk a little bit more about how we bring engineering into entomology. And so for that, this is Norley Van Meer, who came to work with us at the University of Florida from the Netherlands. Okay, so as I said, you can see that my project is really transitioning here from, it's transitioning Cambridge from University of Florida. Just want to show you also a spine crushing test, how we do that in the laboratory here in Cambridge, where you can see the force that the spines can withstand, right? And if they can withstand a lot of force, the idea is that male's going to be more effective in fighting. And some of these can really not withstand any force. We might expect those males to actually not fight if they can self-assess their bodies and know what they can handle and what they can't. But I hope that gives you a little bit of an overview of what I do. And I'm happy to take questions on this project and others. And thank you so much for being here today.